The cold darkness of space stretched endlessly around the damaged freighter as it drifted between star systems. Captain Jinsu pressed his face against the cracked viewport, watching distant suns that offered no welcome to ships like his. His reflection stared back at him, showing the telltale signs that marked him as different. His eyes held flecks of silver that no pure human should have, a gift from his Altarian mother that had cost him everything. Behind him, the ship groaned and shuddered. The Wanderer had seen better days, maybe better decades. Its hull was a patchwork of salvaged metal plates welded over blast holes from hegemony patrol encounters. The life support systems wheezed like an old man climbing stairs, and the artificial gravity flickered on and off without warning. "Jinsu, we have a problem," Heyone called from the engine room. Her voice carried through the ship's broken intercom system with a metallic edge that came from her cybernetic vocal cords. She had been beautiful once, before the enhancement. Surgeries that saved her life, but damned her soul in the eyes of the galaxy's pure races. Jinsu floated down the corridor, using handholds to pull himself along when the gravity failed again. He found Heyone bent over a control panel, her mechanical fingers dancing across switches and dials with inhuman precision. Half her face gleamed with silver implants that extended down her neck and disappeared under her worn jumpsuit. "The fuel cells are almost empty," she said without looking up. "Maybe 6 hours of power left, and that's if we shut down everything except life support." Soman emerged from the small medical bay, where she had been tending to their last passenger, an injured Kitharian who had paid them in stolen ration packs to escape his homeworld. She moved with the fluid grace of her people, her large, dark eyes filled with the gentle sadness that had marked the Gellan race as weak in hegemony eyes. "The passenger will live," she said softly, "but he needs real medical attention soon. His wounds are infected." Jinsu rubbed his tired eyes. 3 years of running, hiding, and scraping by had worn them all down. They were rejected, marked, with genetic tattoos that appeared on their skin like brands. His was a red spiral on his left wrist that identified him as a hybrid. Heyone bore blue circuit patterns along her temples, marking her as technologically contaminated. Soman's was a simple green circle on her palm, the sign of her species' supposed evolutionary failure. The hegemony controlled most of the galaxy through fear and purity laws. Only certain species were considered worthy of citizenship. Humans were barely tolerated, kept as laborers and soldiers in the outer systems. But mixed breeds like Jinsu were shot on sight. Enhanced beings like Heyone were hunted down and destroyed. Peaceful races like Soman's were enslaved or exterminated. "There's a hegemony checkpoint 3 systems from here," Jinsu said, checking their star charts. "But we'd never make it with this little fuel, and they'd vaporize us anyway." "What about the black market station in the Vega sector?" Heyone suggested. "Too far, and last I heard, they were charging 10 times normal rates for fuel. We don't have enough credits." The ship shuddered again, and warning lights flashed on the bridge. Jinsu cursed under his breath as he checked the system's display. Their main engine was overheating, probably from the strain of their last jump. At this rate, they would be stranded in empty space within hours. So Min sat quietly in her usual spot, her hands folded in her lap. Her people had a gift for sensing emotions, and Jinsu knew she could feel the despair growing in all of them. It was probably why the hegemony considered them dangerous, despite their peaceful nature. Truth had a way of being uncomfortable. "There might be another option," Heyone said slowly. She pulled up a data pad that had been hidden in her toolkit. "I've been monitoring rejected communications for weeks. There are rumors, stories really." "What kind of stories?" Jinsu asked. "About a place. A world that the hegemony tried to destroy long ago, but failed. They put it under permanent quarantine, marked it as forbidden space. But some of the older rejected, the ones who've been running for decades, they say it's still there, still alive." Jinsu felt a chill run down his spine. Every spacer knew the stories about quarantine worlds, places where the hegemony had tried to wipe out entire civilizations, leaving behind only death and radiation. Most were just dead rocks now, serving as warnings to anyone who might challenge the pure races. Even if it exists, it's probably a trap, he said. Maybe, Hay-One replied. But I intercepted coordinates yesterday. An old freighter captain broadcast them on a rejected frequency before his ship was destroyed by a patrol. His last words were, "Find the forbidden world. Find hope." Soman looked up at them with her large, sad eyes. Perhaps hope is all we have left. Jinsu stared at the coordinates on Hay-One's datapad. They pointed to a system marked in red on every star chart, a place where no ship was supposed to go. But as another warning alarm began to sound, and their situation grew more desperate, he realized they had no choice left. Sometimes the only way forward was through the forbidden darkness toward whatever waited beyond. The jump to hyperspace felt different this time. Jinsu gripped his chair as the Wanderer shook violently, its old engine screaming in protest. The coordinates Hay-One had found led to a system so far from civilized space that their navigation computer kept flashing warnings about the distance. "Something's wrong," Hay-One shouted over the noise. Sparks flew from her control panel as circuits overloaded. "The hyperdrive is pushing too hard. We're going to tear ourselves apart." The ship bucked and rolled like a wild animal. Soman held onto the wall, her face pale with fear. In the cargo bay, they could hear their injured passenger crying out. In panic, Jinsu fought with the controls, but the ship refused to respond properly. Then suddenly, they dropped out of hyperspace. The silence that followed was deafening. Emergency lights blinked red across the bridge while smoke drifted from burned-out systems. But through the main viewport, Jinsu saw something that made him forget all their problems. A blue and green world hung before them like a jewel against the black of space. White clouds swirled across its surface, and on the night side, tiny lights sparkled like stars. It was beautiful, alive, nothing like the dead rock they had expected to find. "That's impossible," Hay-One whispered. Her mechanical fingers worked frantically over her scanner controls. "The hegemony records say this world was cleansed 3,000 years ago. Nothing should be living here." Soman pressed her face to the viewport, her eyes wide with wonder. "I can feel them," she said softly. "There are minds down there, millions of them. They're not afraid." Jinsu tried to restart their engines, but the hyperdrive was completely dead. Worse, their main power was failing fast. "We're going down whether we want to or not," he said. "I can't control our descent." The Wanderer shuddered as it hit the planet's atmosphere. The hull grew hot, and Jinsu could smell burning metal. He did his best to aim for what looked like open ground, but the ship was falling too fast. Trees rushed up to meet them, and then everything went black dot. Jin-Su woke up hanging upside down in his pilot's seat. His head pounded, and something warm trickled down his face. Around him, the bridge was a mess of broken glass and twisted metal. Emergency power flickered weakly, casting strange shadows on the walls. "Hay-One, Somin," he called out. Here came Hay-One's voice from somewhere behind him. "Somin's unconscious but breathing. Our passenger didn't make it." Jinsu managed to free himself from his harness and dropped to what used to be the ceiling. The ship had flipped during the crash and now rested on its back like a dying turtle. Through a crack in the hull, he could see sunlight and smell fresh air. They helped each other climb out of the wreck. The ship had carved a long scar through a forest of tall trees, finally coming to rest in a clearing. The air was warm and sweet, filled with the sounds of birds and insects. It was the most alive place Jinsu had ever seen. "Look," Somin said, pointing across the clearing. A group of beings was walking toward them. Jinsu tensed, ready to run or fight, but these newcomers moved slowly and kept their hands visible. They wore simple uniforms in earth colors, and their leader was a woman, with kind eyes and confident bearing. She was human, but different somehow. Her skin was golden brown, and her hair was black with streaks of silver. When she spoke, her voice carried an accent Jinsu had never heard before. "Welcome to Earth," she said in perfect galactic standard. "I'm Commander Minna of the Earth Defense Coalition. You're safe here." Behind her stood the most amazing sight Jinsu had ever seen. There were at least 20 different beings, species he recognized as rejected, mixed with others he had never encountered. They worked together without fear or suspicion, some carrying medical supplies, while others secured the crash site, Earth. Haywan's electronic voice cracked with disbelief. "But the hegemony destroyed Earth millennia ago. It's in all the history files." Mina smiled sadly. "The hegemony tried to destroy us. They failed. We've been hidden here ever since, helping people like you." A tall man with gentle hands began treating Jinsu's head wound. His name was Dr. Teho, and he was human like Mina, but he worked alongside a crystalline being whose touch could heal, and a small furry creature whose large eyes could see injuries that normal scanners missed. "You're all rejected too?" Somin asked, looking around in wonder. "Earth has been home to the unwanted for 3,000 years, Mina explained. Every species the hegemony has cast out, every being they've marked as impure or weak, they're welcome here. We learned long ago that diversity is strength, not weakness." Jinsu felt tears running down his face. For the first time in his life, he was surrounded by beings who didn't see his mixed heritage as a curse. No one stared at his silver-flecked eyes, or whispered about contamination. These people looked at him and saw simply another person who needed help. "How many of you are there?" he asked. Min-Ah gestured toward the forest, where he could now see buildings hidden among the trees. "On this continent alone, about 10 million. Worldwide, nearly 1 billion souls who were told they had no place in the galaxy. But we made our own place, and it's beautiful." The weeks that followed changed everything Jinsu thought he knew about life in the galaxy. Each morning he woke up in a small but comfortable room in New Haven, the human city built into the forest canopy. Sunlight streamed through windows, made of some material that was stronger than steel, but clear as water. The bed was soft, the air was clean, and for the first time in years, he felt safe. Commander Mina had assigned Taejon, a young human engineer, to show them around the city. Taejon was barely 20, but spoke 4 different alien languages and could fix technology from a dozen species. He walked them through workshops where the impossible happened daily. "Watch this," Taejon said, leading them to a manufacturing bay. A group of Gelen workers sat quietly around a machine, their eyes closed in concentration. Their gift for feeling emotions extended to sensing the stress patterns in metal and crystal. Next to them, Vorthan technicians with cybernetic implants worked at computer terminals, their enhanced minds processing data at incredible speeds. "The Gelens can feel when the metal is about to break," Taejon explained. "The Vorthans calculate the exact pressure needed. Together, they make alloys stronger than anything the hegemony has ever produced." Haywan studied the process with amazement. "The hegemony keeps these species separate. They say mixing technologies leads to contamination." "The hegemony is afraid," said Sujin, a human scientist who joined them. She was small and energetic, with bright eyes that missed nothing. "They know that cooperation creates innovation. That's why they work so hard to keep everyone divided." In the agricultural districts, Ginsu watched crystalline Zephyrians working, alongside insectoid Threnody in vast underground gardens. The Zephyrians could store and focus sunlight, providing the exact spectrum of light each plant needed. The Threnody, with their complex chemical senses, could detect diseases or nutrient deficiencies before any scanner. "My people were called parasites," one of the Threnody workers told him through a translation device. "The hegemony said, we consumed resources without contributing, but here, we help feed 10 million beings." Somin found her place in the counseling centers, where her empathic abilities were treasured rather than feared. She worked with Dr. Vajin, a human psychologist, helping new refugees adjust to life on Earth. Her gentle touch could calm the most frightened arrivals and sense trauma that words couldn't express. The hegemony taught us that emotion was weakness. Soman told Jinsu one evening as they walked through the city's peaceful streets. But humans understand that feeling deeply is a gift. It helps them know what others need. What amazed Jinsu most was how the humans had organized their society. Captain Dongwu, head of Earth's military, was not the strongest fighter or the most advanced strategist. He was chosen because he could coordinate the unique abilities of every species under his command. During training exercises, Jinsu watched him direct battles where Galen empaths predicted enemy movements, while Zephyrian crystals disrupted communications. Traditional military thinking focuses on uniform strength, Dongwu explained during one of their conversations. Every soldier should be the same, follow the same training, use the same tactics. We learned that's actually weakness. Real strength comes from bringing together different abilities that complement each other. In the evenings, Jinsu often sat with Commander Mina on the balcony of the government building, watching the city come alive with lights from 100 different species. Children played in the streets below, human kids running alongside young Threnody and Zephyrian crystals that glowed with happiness. "How did you do it?" Jinsu asked one night. "How did you create something the rest of the galaxy says is impossible?" Mina was quiet for a long moment, watching a group of teenagers from 6 different species working together on some kind of art project. "When the hegemony first attacked Earth," she said, "we were alone and afraid. We barely survived. But then other rejected started finding us, refugees and outcasts, with nowhere else to go." She pointed to an old memorial in the center of the city, a simple stone structure surrounded by gardens. "At first, we were suspicious of each other. Humans didn't trust the aliens, and they didn't trust us. Everyone was used to being hurt and abandoned." "What changed?" Jinsu asked. "A plague," Mina said simply. "A disease that affected everyone equally, no matter what species they were. We could either work together to find a cure, or we could all die together." It took a Jellen's emotional sensing to recognize the symptoms, human medical knowledge to understand the disease, and Vorthan computational power to create the treatment. She smiled at the memory. "When the plague ended, we realized something. We were stronger together than any of us had ever been alone. Not because we were the same, but because we were different." A young human boy ran past, chasing a Threnody child whose carapace sparkled with laughter. Behind them came a Zephyrian crystal floating in the air, pulsing with soft colors that seemed to be part of their game. "The hegemony teaches that purity equals strength," Mina continued. "We learned that diversity equals innovation. They fear contamination. We embrace combination, and that's made us into something they never expected." Jinsu felt a warmth in his chest that had nothing to do with the pleasant evening air. For the first time in his life, he understood what home could feel like. The alarms began at dawn, their harsh wailing cutting through the peaceful morning air of New Haven. Jinsu jolted awake in his bed as red warning lights flashed outside his window. Through the transparent walls, he could see people running in the streets below, but there was no panic. Everyone moved with practiced efficiency, like they had prepared for this day for years. Commander Mina's voice echoed through the city's communication system. "All residents to emergency stations. This is not a drill. Hegemony forces have entered the system." Jinsu rushed to the command center, where he found Haewon and Soman already working alongside human technicians. The main display showed a sight that made his blood freeze. Hundreds of hegemony warships filled the space around Earth, their hulls gleaming with the symbols of the galaxy's most powerful military forces. Admiral Kyung-ho's massive dreadnought led the fleet. It was 3 times larger than any ship Jinsu had ever seen, bristling with weapons that could crack planets. The Admiral's face appeared on the communication screen, his features hard and cold. "Attention, Plague World," his voice boomed across all frequencies. "Your contamination ends today. You have harbored the rejected for too long. Surrender them to us, and we will grant you a swift death instead of the slow cleansing you deserve." Captain Dongwu stood in the center of the war room, surrounded by representatives from 50 different species. The comparison was stark. Earth's defense fleet numbered barely 60 ships, most of them converted freighters and outdated patrol boats. They were facing the combined might of 3 hegemony battle groups. "We could try to negotiate," suggested Elder Wu Jin, an ancient human whose family had been among Earth's first defenders. "Perhaps we could evacuate some of the children." "No," Jinsu heard himself saying. He stepped forward, surprised by his own conviction. "You taught us that we have value, that we deserve to exist. If we surrender now, we're saying that was a lie." Haywon's mechanical fingers flew over her control panel. Their tracking beacon led them here. "It was hidden in our ship's systems. This is my fault." "This is no one's fault," Minna said firmly. "We always knew this day might come. The question is, what do we do now?" So-min touched Jinsu's arm gently. Through her empathic abilities, he could feel her sharing strength and calm with everyone in the room. "We fight," she said quietly. "Not because we want to, but because we must." The first wave of hegemony fighters screamed into Earth's atmosphere like falling stars. They expected to face primitive defenses and panicked resistance. Instead, they encountered something they had never seen before. Young human pilots like Jamin flew alongside alien crew members in perfect harmony. Their ships were smaller and less powerful than the hegemony fighters, but they moved with a coordination that confused their enemies. Jalan empaths could sense the enemy pilots' intentions before they acted. Zephyrian crystals disrupted targeting systems with precise energy pulses. Threnodi's swarm tactics scattered the enemy formations. "They're not fighting like separate species," Admiral Kyung-ho snarled as he watched the battle unfold. "How are they coordinating so perfectly?" The answer became clear as the battle intensified. While hegemony forces relied on rigid command structures and species-specific tactics, Earth's defenders used something the pure races had forgotten: complete trust. Each mixed crew shared their unique abilities, without fear or competition. Captain Dongwu coordinated the defense from the command center, but he wasn't giving traditional military orders. Instead, he was facilitating communication between species who thought in completely different ways. When Vorthan computers detected weak points in enemy shields, Jelan empaths sensed which pilots were ready to exploit them. The breakthrough came when Earth's forces stopped trying to match the hegemony's firepower and started using their greatest advantage, unpredictability. While the enemy expected standard battle formations, they faced tactics that combined the best ideas from dozens of species. Haywon hacked into hegemony communication networks, creating confusion in their ranks. So-min and other empaths worked together to sense the emotional state of enemy commanders, predicting their strategies. Human tactical genius coordinated it all, turning supposed weaknesses into devastating strengths. But the real power wasn't in the weapons or tactics. It was in the message that Captain Dongwu transmitted across the galaxy on all frequencies. "This is Earth," his voice carried to every corner of hegemony space. "We are the rejected. We are not pure. We are not perfect. We are not what you wanted us to be. But we are united. We stand together, and we will not bow to those who say we have no right to exist." Across the galaxy, billions of beings who had been told they were inferior heard those words. On factory worlds were mixed. Breeds labored in chains. The message sparked hope. In research facilities where enhanced beings were tortured for their modifications, it inspired rebellion. On peaceful worlds marked for cleansing, it gave courage to resist. The tide of battle began to turn as more Earth ships joined the fight. These weren't military vessels, but converted civilian craft, piloted by refugees who had found home among the stars. They flew with desperate courage, protecting the world that had given them hope when the universe had given them nothing but rejection. Admiral Kyun-ho watched his perfect formation crumble against an enemy that refused to follow the rules of warfare. For the first time in his career, he faced opponents who fought not for conquest or glory, but for the simple right to exist. The impossible was happening. The rejected were winning. Admiral Kang-ho's finger trembled on the firing control as he stared at the screen, showing 60 small ships positioned between his planet-killer weapon and Earth. Behind those defenders, the blue world continued to spin peacefully, unaware that its fate hung by a thread. "Sir," his weapons officer said quietly, "the cannon is fully charged. One shot will destroy them all." But something had changed in the Admiral's eyes. Across his fleet, more ships were going silent as their crews refused orders. On the bridge of his own dreadnought, he could see doubt creeping across the faces of his officers. These were beings who had been taught their entire lives that purity meant strength, that mixing species led only to weakness and chaos. Yet here was Earth's ragtag fleet, outnumbered 10 to 1, holding the line with a courage that pure military training couldn't explain. Commander Minna's voice came through the communication system one more time. "Admiral, your crews are watching. The entire galaxy is watching. You can fire that weapon and prove that might makes right. Or you can choose to be something better than what the hegemony made you." For 30 seconds, that felt like hours, space held its breath. Then slowly, Admiral Kyung-ho's hand moved away from the firing control. "Stand down," he whispered. "Sir," his weapons officer asked in confusion. "I said stand down," the Admiral shouted. "All ships, cease fire. Withdraw to minimum safe distance." The Battle of Earth was over, but its real impact was just beginning. Within hours, the footage of Earth's desperate defense had spread across every communication network in the galaxy. Billions of beings watched small ships cruise by. Rejected outcasts faced down the hegemony's most powerful weapon to protect their home. More importantly, they heard the message that Captain Dongwu had broadcast during the battle. "We are the rejected. We are not pure. We are not perfect. But we are united." On factory worlds where mixed breeds labored in chains, those words sparked uprisings. In research facilities where enhanced beings were tortured for their modifications, they inspired escapes. On peaceful worlds, marked for cleansing, they gave courage to resist. The revolution began not with armies or weapons, but with hope. Jin-Su stood on the observation deck of New Haven's rebuilt spaceport 6 months later, watching another group of refugee ships approach Earth's welcoming lights. The port had tripled in size to handle the flood of beings seeking sanctuary. Every day brought new arrivals, rejected who had thrown off their brands, hegemony deserters who chose conscience over orders, an entire species who had declared independence from pure control. Haewon had become the head of a new engineering corps that converted military ships into exploration vessels. Her cybernetic abilities, once seen as contamination, now coordinated the technical knowledge of dozens of species to create innovations the galaxy had never imagined. "The supply convoy from the Vega sector just arrived," she reported, her mechanical voice carrying notes of satisfaction. "3 more systems have joined the Liberation Coalition. That makes 47 total." Somin worked beside Ambassador Yujin in the diplomatic quarters, helping to negotiate peace between species that had been enemies for centuries. Her empathic gifts allowed her to sense when negotiations were going well and when old hatreds threatened to surface. The Catharian delegation finally agreed to work with the Vorthan refugees, she told Jinsu during one of their evening walks through the city. It took weeks, but they realized their technologies complement each other perfectly. The changes weren't just political. Earth had become the center of a new kind of civilization, one built on the radical idea that differences made communities stronger rather than weaker. The old hegemony still controlled much of the galaxy's core systems, But their grip weakened daily as more worlds declared independence. Captain Dongwu, now promoted to Admiral of the Liberation Fleet, coordinated military operations that looked nothing like traditional warfare. Instead of conquest and occupation, Earth's forces focused on protection and rescue. They evacuated rejected populations from worlds under hegemony attack and provided safe passage to independent systems. "We're not trying to build an empire," he explained to Jinsu during a strategy meeting. "Empires are about forcing others to be like you. We're building something new, a community where everyone can be themselves." The proof of this philosophy could be seen throughout New Haven and the other cities that had grown up around Earth. Children of a dozen species played together in the streets. Scientists combined the knowledge of their different cultures to solve problems none could handle alone. Artists created beauty that no single species could have imagined. But perhaps the most important change was in the rejected themselves. Jinsu no longer saw his mixed heritage as a curse to hide. The silver flecks in his eyes, once a mark of shame, now reminded him that he carried the best of two worlds. Haywan's cybernetic implants had become symbols of the power that came from embracing change rather than fearing it. One evening, as Jinsu stood watching the sunset paint Earth's sky in brilliant colors, Commander Minna joined him on the balcony. "Do you think we can actually do it?" he asked. "Build a galaxy where being different is celebrated instead of punished." Minna smiled, her eyes reflecting the first stars appearing in the darkening sky. "Look around you," she said. 6 months ago, most of these people thought they were worthless mistakes. Now they're building something beautiful together. The universe rejected them, but Earth gave them hope. And hope, Jinsu, is the strongest force in any galaxy. In the distance, more ships appeared on the horizon, not refugees this time, but allies. The revolution had begun, and there was no stopping it now.